Comments. Mr. Chairman, sir, I rise to support the motion thanking the President for his address on the eve of the current session and to say a few words. The President dealt with the rise in prices, and I am glad that a considerable part of his address is dealing with the common man's problems. The hardship of the people went on increasing from the days of Bangladesh war. Soon after the Bangladesh war was over, our country was trying its best to reduce the import of food grains and other essential commodities, but unfortunately there were famines, droughts and cyclones in many parts of the country. Naturally, the government had to tackle all these problems and give relief to the people. But just then, there was an international crisis and there was restriction in production. As a result, there was rise in prices and there was also scarcity in many of the essential commodities. The government took steps to check the rise in prices by putting a curb on expenditure. As a result, the prices have been controlled to some extent and many of the essential commodities have become less scarce. But I must point out to the government that the price of the rice is still going up gradually in the whole country, and this is due to certain wrong policies followed by the state governments, perhaps at the instance or with the approval of the central government. So, I request the centre to take serious notice of this fact. Sir, I now go to the next point. There is no doubt that inflation is a world phenomenon, but at the same time, we should remember that it has also its adverse effects on the middle and the working class people of this country. In this convention, I would like to point out that in other countries, the wages and incomes have gone up rapidly in proportion to the rise in prices, but in our country, the wages and incomes of the middle and the working class people have not gone up in proportion to the rise in prices. As a result, the real incomes and wages of the common people have come down. It is very much during this period of inflation and the working class people who are suffering very much during this period of inflation, and the government should bear in mind these sections while formulating plans and production programs. Sir, the President has rightly congratulated the nuclear scientists and engineers on the remarkable advance made in the nuclear field. The future of this country, the prosperity of this country and the responsibility for increased production by scientific methods lie in the hands of our engineers and scientists. It is regrettable that these engineers and scientists do not get sufficient encouragement in the country and there is the brain drain. I request the government to formulate some schemes to see that this brain drain is reduced to the minimum and that the scientists and engineers of the country contribute to the advancement of our own country. I am glad that the President has made a reference to corruption. We must realize that corruption grows rapidly where there is wide gap between the income of a public servant and the income of a private individual who is a leading lawyer or a busy doctor or a big businessman. At a higher level, it represents greed for power, and at a lower level, it represents an urge for survival. Sir, corruption can be reduced in the country only by taking some economic measures such as ceiling on urban property and other economic measures. I am glad that the President has made a reference to certain economic measures which the government will undertake during the current year. In the President's address, it has been stated that the government are undertaking various programs for educational reforms. I may point out that in this matter, the government have a fundamental duty. It is one of the directive principles of state policy enshrined in the Constitution that free and compulsory elementary education should be given to all children below 14. Sir, it is 25 years since the Constitution came into force, yet this directive principle has not been fulfilled by the various governments in the country. I hope the government will give top priority to elementary education and see that all children below 14 and above 6 years are given free and compulsory education throughout the country. Sir, in Karnataka, Tamil Nadu and some other places, secondary education is almost free with the exception of convents and some other schools. I hope that secondary education will be made free throughout the country in all the states without any exception. So far as colleges are concerned, some private managements find it difficult to run the colleges because they do not get sufficient grants. Therefore, they are compelled to collect donation from students. I request the government to see that the private managements do not resort to such methods and see that they get enough grants. Stop.